And we're live. What's shaking, guys? Yeah, you are the first. Good work, 619. I will, I'll probably see you later today, right? Over in Point Loma. Let's see. So today is February 19th, 2025. Rocking and rolling here. And we've got a bunch of news. I think usually I do Onocoy and anyone first, but I think the big news here is that Wingbits is sending stuff into space, which I think is rad. It's super cool to see that coming down the pipe and see that really, just like the funness of getting off the planet. So I thought that was rad. Let's see. Onocoy started their Engage Challenge today. So I dropped the tweet where you can go find out about that over on X. There's a bunch of stuff you can do to engage and earn points. I'm not sure how loud the background noise is right outside my window. They're busy tearing the ass out of my street. So you may be able to hear some beeping and grinding from out there. In Anyone news, they got the router mode update and upgrade is going on. So if you've got an Anyone node and you want to use the router mode, it's either here or it's about to be here. And I'm sorry because I'm on some beta thing. So I usually get the stuff a little bit earlier than the average bear. So sometimes what I'm seeing and what you're seeing are two different things. So sorry about that. But if you don't have it now, it's coming soon. In Helium news, I should probably just switch as we go through, right? Give you a quick flash on Onocoy, which we talked about, and maybe make this thing a little bit smaller. Yep. And then we talked about Anyone, and then we got Helium is up next. So it looks like Helium's got a bunch of different things going on, mostly at Consensus. Both Sam Lewis and Frank Mong will be presenting at Consensus. So super cool to see that happening. Sam has a super fancy term. It's like head of capital at Helium. That's pretty rad. He's also running the grant thing from that side, so I'm psyched to see him crushing there. Hivemapper had some big news with, let's see, where's Hivemapper? There they are. Yeah, Hivemapper had some big news with this announcing Trimble, and I think they did it a couple days ago, but that was pretty cool to see that they're bringing in one of the really big customers out there. Trimble's using their map, so super cool there. And then DIMO announced that they are going to be doing an on-chain food truck with Blackbird, and Blackbird is a way for you to pay for your restaurant check. So that's kind of cool. And they'll be doing that at ETH Denver. And then here's the Wingbits news, which was that they're going to space with Spire Global. They've got this satellite validator. I think that's a super clever thing to do. And Max and I talked to, what was this satellite validator program? A bunch of super nerdy people. Maybe last year I met him at Sal's event, the DePIN Summit. Might have been more than a year ago. Met those guys. He was on a panel that I managed, or that I ran. But super cool to think of a validator in space. I think that's a really cool application there, and it's just good to see Wingbits crushing on that. In Spexi news, they were at Denver Geo Week, and it's just good to see them going through with regular people, with the normies, what's happening in, here comes Joey. What's happening in, let me see if I can fix this, in crypto world. So just getting folks to, what's up, Joey?
Good morning.
Hello. Let's see, I was hitting, not WeatherXM, but Spexi. There we go. Yeah, Spexi was at Geo Week in Denver and just introing deep into a ton more, geo engineer types. Really cool to see that happening across the board. I think the one of the big takeaways there, they had 3 of them, was that we're still early, and I think that's true across DePIN. As old as it seems to us, and it's like, oh yeah, we've been doing this for years and years. For a lot of people, this is like a super new, super cool way of doing things. The last thing, and this is a giant chunk of news, so you'll have to go through and digest it, but WeatherXM has released their 2025 roadmap. I dropped the blog down in the description going through what they're doing, but hyperlocal stuff, the Weather Pro forecasts, and then they went over what they did last year. God, there was one other thing that I meant to write it down and I forgot, but there it is. Forgot it. They're kicking ass. Read through that. And then the last thing I've got is Medio Scientific actually has new branding now, but I sprung it on Kevin at almost the last minute, so he has a chance to go through it. I presented to the working group on Monday all these specific milestones. I think we're going through some kind of hiccup, bumpy phases with how grants get funded and approved and all that. And I'm happy to be one of the first ones going through that and taking those bumps on. But yeah, looks like that should be done. I heard that the signing person responsible for signing is out of the office this week, so we should get that signed and started maybe next week, is the word on the street that I got. So that'll be super cool when I can get going on that. And then we got Flywheel Systems. Where, fuck, Kevin, did you You probably sent this to me and I forgot it. But we had a T-shirt winner. Yeah,
There, Flywheel Systems right there.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. It's down in the description there, or down in the bottom right of the screen, and also in the description there's a link to them. But we had a Make Something Everyday T-shirt winner, so that was super cool to see. SuburbanCrypto, congrats, and you'll be getting your shirt, I guess, whenever Kevin sends it out. So that's all
Quick.
the news. We did it in 5 minutes, Joey. What you shaking, dog?
This Medio scientific branding, you're holding out on everyone that's watching the feed. This looks pretty.
It's cool, huh?
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
that do you come up with this? Is
No,
some
no, it's my buddy Rush Eby. He does, I think it's Bandit Media Group, and we were working on this thing because we're working on building a kind of a MetSci business. So the whole Business of LoRaWAN podcast, and then behind that, as he heard I was doing that stuff, he's a buddy of mine. He was like, "Dude, we should build something around that and do this kind of connector piece, introducing all these folks," which I've always thought was a good idea to make it so that Business of LoRaWAN ends up being like a clearinghouse for all these different LoRaWAN businesses, providers, subscribers, all that stuff. And he's like, "Dude, can I do a rebrand of MetSci?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, go for it."
love it. Yeah.
So
Keep them going.
yeah, yeah, that's it. I worked on it. I was trying to get it to load as fast as possible the other day, so I think it's loading pretty quickly now. Mediascientific.com on both mobile and desktop. I was pretty pleased with it, but I think most
Good,
people don't
good.
fucking notice that or give a shit.
Oh, I do. That's one of my favorite things to go dig into. I actually last night I was purging unused packages from our documentation repo because who needs them, right?
Yeah, gotta get rid of those
Yeah.
packages.
Yep.
Let's see.
Well,
What
sweet.
else?
Yeah.
Okay, 619 wants Kevin to reply to your DM. I think 619 wants a mobile agreement. So if any of you guys have an agreement that you've set up, and maybe we go talk to Frank about this, if he's done any splitting, I think when Frank Mong has talked about putting in Helium hotspots at businesses, he said they always just end up buying their own hotspots, so there's no need for a split. But I also get that it would be a good thing to have like a splitter agreement. And of course, it's going to be different every state, every locality. But I think that's what 619 is looking for, is like some kind of template. So if anyone has a template for their partner or their, their sharing agreement for a mobile hotspot, hit me up or just drop into the GK Discord and find 619 there and hook them up.
That's the most classic, like not legal advice or not financial advice kind of thing. It's just going
Yeah.
to be different for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Um,
it's just a template. Don't copy pasta that thing.
yeah. Um, the cool, I want to touch on that really quick. Like the cool way to do that is just do it on chain, and then you set your reward recipient to the smart contract that
Yep.
takes those, splits them out, and sends them off. Um, Joe, I saw the comment in there about stalking my GitHub. That is a smart thing to do. You can stalk my GitHub and everyone else's. Um, the you want to pull up the in the can thing? Maybe that's time.
Oh yeah, where is it? It's as they say, as Joey says,
Yeah,
it's in the can,
it's
baby.
done. Yeah, so self-serve onboarding is fully complete. There's a process through the CLI,
Okay.
the wallet CLI. So it is entirely on me this week to write documentation so people can stumble their way through it a little less stumbly. Um, but yeah, if somebody was, you know, appropriately curious, they could go get the latest wallet CLI, sort of figure out the steps, and onboard a Wi-Fi network to the mobile network.
Rad.
Um, but yeah, and then Joe noted that disappointed that the data only will only offload Helium unless done with Helium Plus. Yeah, that's really, I think we've talked about this before, so I'll try not to be too verbose on it. But for for this class of gateways that can transfer data, it's super important to the carriers that they know exactly where they are and they have some sense of quality of service and all that kind of stuff. It's not something that we're set up to do for just a general self-serve audience right now.
Yep.
So Helium Plus is our solution for that, to sort of make sure that we're sort of pushing that and growing the sort of brownfield, or as we're starting to call them, converted networks. Um,
Yeah, you can't use brownfield. That's
so
such a
anyway.
terrible name.
It's terrible. Yeah. We came up with converted networks, and you'll see that in World now. And I think that's better way to say it. It's still not like roll off the tongue, but um, yeah,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it is.
We'd certainly come up with something better. I think the other thing that, and we talked about this when it first came out, was like the own the air thing. I was like, I don't know if I own the air is something I would want to get behind, but whatever. They don't ask me for
Sure.
marketing advice, and they seem like they're doing okay. So maybe it's not worth it to listen to me.
Yeah. Well, they're always cooking something new. So
Yeah.
the mini cell tower seems to be the thing that resonates the most. So you'll hear that a lot.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. Let's
Yeah.
see what else is going on, dude. I've got all kinds of stuff on the Met Sci front where I'm just prepping for this podcast for the kind of go button to be pushed. What do you got going on?
Uh, what can I talk about?
Ooh, a teaser.
No, it's not. It's like this is always the problem. Um, uh,
Okay, well,
you
I'll
got to
talk
give
about a
me a
couple.
minute. The coffee's still,
Yeah, I'll
yeah.
give you a couple things on the Met Sci side that I think all this stuff is super cool. I've been listening to a bunch of different podcasts on IoT because there isn't a LoRaWAN podcast yet. That's the whole point of the business LoRaWAN thing. But one thing I saw, so there's a bunch of different ideas. There's this least cost routing idea and the device decides idea. So in IoT, all of these different sensors are connected in lots of different ways. Some of them are NB-IoT, which I didn't realize was mainly a Chinese thing. Narrowband IoT is huge in China, and the rest of the world hasn't really adopted it. And if you look at the rest of the world, they're using LoRaWAN, where China uses NB-IoT, which is kind of a cool thing. And many of the major carriers or major, I guess, operators have said like we're going to not use NB-IoT. So I always wonder, is there some political motivation behind that? Maybe there is. Interesting to think about. But this idea, to get back to the least cost routing, is that a device may have multiple ways to communicate. Maybe it's got Bluetooth on board or Wi-Fi or cell or Helium, or it's got some LoRaWAN piece. And the device should be able to decide itself how it's going to send
Mhm.
out the data and what the least cost is. And I just thought that was super cool to think about. How is that going to work? And then I haven't dug into this yet. Like, how does Helium compare to everything else? And I'm imagining it's the cheapest possible because we've had so many complaints about how cheap it is, which seems like a funny thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, digging into that.
Well, it's a pretty cool concept and one that I really started thinking about when Particle was launching that Muon series.
Yep.
And so it is exactly what you're talking about. It's got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and cellular and satellite and LoRaWAN. Um, and so there's definitely a stack that you work up, and some of them have strengths and some of them have weaknesses. Your cheapest even from an energy standpoint is going to be Bluetooth. And then if you can't, backhaul your data that way, then you're looking at Wi-Fi, but that's going to be limited on range. And so you kind of work your way up the ladder. So yeah, I think Helium with LoRaWAN's probably ranking just the next step up above Wi-Fi, which is, it's free because you presumably own that network. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's that was an
yeah,
interesting piece. And then what's Travis saying? Look at where the tech originated on that one. I think he's probably talking about NB-IoT, and my guess is that it originated in China, but I could be wrong.
yeah,
But I've got to look more into that. So that's been super cool to think about that. 619, you saw that GeoNet is on Spotify. Yeah, Mike Horton launched. It's like the Horton Minute or something. And if they haven't called it that, they probably should. But he's doing like a bunch of podcast stuff on Spotify. So I thought that was cool. Let's see, what else did I have? I've got like all these ideas, and they're thrown into all these various notes in my little Apple thing. Good God, where the heck is the rest of it? What else was there? Oh, so the on the edge thing was cool, and then multimodality for accuracy was another one, and that came. I listened to this podcast.
mhm,
This Australian company was saying they got hired to do sensing on these underground tunnels, I think sewer tunnels, and they were sensing to see if people were dumping whatever shit into the tunnels, or not shit, but chemicals into the tunnels. And if you
yep,
only have a VOC monitor, which volatile organic compounds, if you only have this one monitor, they were getting all kinds of false positives. So the alarm was going off all the time. So what they did was started saying, okay, we can put in multiple sensors in here, multiple modalities. They're multi model or multi-modalities. I forget which one. Multi fucking sensor. And they're like, okay, if the fluid level, the liquid level is this high, and the VOC is this high, and there's one more thing that they did, maybe like the temperature was this high, like now you for sure have a problem. And when they put all those in, the alarms basically stopped because they stopped getting false positives because people weren't dumping that
Mm.
often. And then one time an alarm went off and they went down to check it and they're like, holy shit, this is 100, this was accurate. And now we got to go find this one company for dumping a bunch of shit in there. I thought that was super
Hmm.
cool.
It's a that problem of people dumping stuff is surprisingly super common. I've had conversations with wastewater engineers about that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Siegfried
they
is
they
good.
they spend boatloads of money trying to chase people down for that. But
Yeah. I don't know
yeah,
anything about this one. Helium and Telefonica Movie Star Mexico. Probably betraying my massive ignorance there.
yeah, this was me, trying to figure out what I could talk about earlier.
Okay.
Siegfried
Sounds
did
like you
miss
can talk
it.
about this.
The data. I'm going to change the topic. Siegfried, the
Fuck.
data only onboarding stuff is working. We just need docs. That was the update that you missed. Um, I had you in my mind when I wanted to share that. Um,
Let's see if I can get this background back, which I have accidentally just deleted. Amazing.
there are all sorts of stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a regular
Um,
shit show here as usual.
I will say, World keeps getting some updates. So there's some new entities on those maps. We labeled these like expansion zones that'll probably get renamed to like target zones. Uh, you can make your own interpretations of that.
Huh.
Is that enough of a anyway? I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah. I'm not going to
Anatomy.
force you to. I'm not going to force you to divulge secrets. The Tijuana River
Oh
needs
yeah, I know
help.
you.
Yeah. 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 So this was so I'll go back to this. I'll take you off the hook a little bit here. The multi-sensor thing was cool, and then the other thing this company is doing. What the fuck was the name of it? It's in my podcast thing. I'll find it because I thought it was really cool. Was they've integrated an LLM into the sensor readings, so the sensors all get their what is it? This was Intelligent Edge. What is the name of the company? Simon something. So they made it so that the sensors tell the story instead of just like spitting data onto some dashboard. Is this LLM gets all the sensor data in, it writes out like a short 2 or 3 sentence story and then sends you an email. So you would get an email, Joey, saying like, hey, looks like the sensors are up. Here are the 3 readings. We think this is an actual problem. You should go check this out right now. So you're not having to like go look at a dashboard and try and
Hmm.
interpret anything. This LLM that they built for themselves was making it so that humans receive in human terms what the problem is and what's going on. I thought it was like super cool.
I, this makes me think of this past weekend I went out skiing with my partner and some friends. And one of the friends we were with is a chief scientist or something for CERN,
Okay.
um, and works on Atlas, which is one of the detectors.
Okay.
And it's let's see, I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. So Atlas, for those who don't know, it's basically a big, I'm going to grossly oversimplify this, but it's a big camera that looks at exploding particles, right?
Okay.
So you've got all of these big sensors in this thing, and it's just dumping terabytes of data out. And so
Okay.
it's more than a standard computer can handle. They're doing like super high speed data transfer and doing all they can. Um, and this friend Julia um, was saying that they had this idea. They're like, well, we could do Edge ML to detect when it was actually data that mattered. And
Huh.
all I heard was like Edge ML, and I'm like, my eyes just like immediately locked in. I
Oh,
was like, we do
tell me
that
more.
stuff all the time, right?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting. It is exactly what you think it would be. You put this model at the point of the sensor, and then you say like, is this background noise? Did somebody walk through the experiment area? Like whatever it is, you just throw all that stuff out, and then you just focus on the stuff you really need. And they wrote a paper on it. They got like most innovative idea of the year or something like that. Um, but pretty interesting how the things that we're thinking about when we're talking about whether it's like a sewer sensor or whatever, cast
Yeah.
all the way up. And effectively, ML is making people rethink these things from, you know, meteorological sciences to particle physics.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've been spending a fair amount of time thinking about how basically access to AI changes everything that we touch. Because there's this
Hmm.
temptation to say, I think we did the lovable.dev thing last time to see a tool. Oh, I guess before I go on, Thomas Tinkart, I guess, has been doing this for a long time, and I did forget about that. And I actually, Travis, I hadn't realized that Thomas had been doing that specific thing, even though he may have showed it to me in like a demo. I just forgot about it. But I heard it in this podcast the other day, and it was super cool. So, thinking about how AI affects everything that we do, and there's this temptation to kind of use AI to solve something right now that was really difficult to solve before, and is now super easy, like this LLM for sensor pieces. But I also think because everything is moving so quickly, I don't see how within probably 2 months, if not 6 months, anything you build that is based on an old Web 2 model and just like pasting on AI will be obsolete because anyone will have access to it. And I think we see this probably most clearly with like GPT Pro stuff, where there's this advantage that you have by buying, you're spending $200 a month on GPT Pro and you get deep research and operator and the rest of that. I think all that stuff is going to be available, whether it's through OpenAI or through some other piece within the next month or two. And that advantage disappears. And so you really have to think many, many steps forward into this really murky kind of place of what happens when everything is easy. And I think the answer is something like, because everything will be so easy to do, like all you have to do is speak your idea into existence, what will become super valuable are just the ideas themselves. And so my guess is that the most valuable kind of thing you could build right now is a way to protect your IP and the way to protect your ideas, because everything else will be able to be copied super fast, super easily by any LLM.
Mm. This is really interesting because if you made that statement 20, 15, 10 years ago, right? They tell you you're an idiot. Like ideas are cheap was the statement, right?
Yep.
Um, but we can just build things so much more quickly now that I think you're right that that statement is rapidly changing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still don't have like a great way to think about it. Or I don't have a great solution for it other than, as funny as this sounds, when I was first thinking of the MetSci podcast, it's like, oh, cool. Like I'll do all these deep research queries on GPT, and then I'll do a transformation, make those into podcast scripts, and then I'll add those in as like bonus episodes because deep research does some really cool stuff. And then I was reading through the episodes and it's like, okay, they're pretty good, but I could probably write this better. And that's when it kind of hit me like, oh, the thing that is going to make the podcast or the content valuable is the fact that it's still coming from a human. And there's still some element there of me interacting with the audience versus
Mhm.
just like a total one way conversation, which is what the
Hmm.
AI stuff ends up being. Let's see, Will, does Joey
Yeah,
want to share updates on using non helium gateways? Did we talk about this earlier?
I think so.
Or is
This is
this also,
well,
is this in
so
the secret thing? How many fucking secrets are there?
so we're doing this for the converted networks thing we talked about
Yep.
on Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Um, and for the folks, and Joe was spot on. Like, if you want the latest and greatest, just go stock GitHub. Like, we just publish this stuff as it's ready, and
Just creep.
you'll see
Be
it
a
there
creeper.
first. Um, on the other side of it, though, on the IoT network, I've been helping Foundation in this process around a grant to build a multi-gateway client. If you- We're
Okay.
calling it Helium multi-gateway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And it's this idea that you can take any off-the-shelf LoRaWAN gateway. It doesn't need to be Helium enabled. This is the data only story, right? Um, but you don't have to get in there and do all sorts of configuration. You don't have to load software on the gateway. You can just treat it as it is off the shelf
Mm-hmm.
and point it to this other client that you can run anywhere. And so that is in progress. I've been working with the grantee, the author of it, just sort of the dot in the I's, as you know, on the grant process, making
Oh,
sure
dude.
everything's squared away.
Yeah.
Um, I hate red tape, but it is what it is. Um, and so we're getting him running. It's looking good this week, and we'll get things out,
Cool. Yeah. If you need any help on that, I
or
mean, I
rather,
think
get him building. Yeah.
you probably know more about it than I do, but I've got a couple ideas for how the grant program should be run. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
just to make
All
the whole
right.
thing more
Find some.
streamlined.
Yeah, find some time with Sam. I think he's super open at like
Yeah.
open-minded to all that kind of stuff, but
Yeah. Yeah.
he's just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. He wants to say yes. Finance says like you can't just give money to anybody. So it's
Yeah.
which is important, right?
No, and I
So
think that's part
yeah.
of it is that one thing was that I got to get in first and just do everything wrong, knowing that like, um, I think of it this way, like cowboys get grace, is that when you are super early, no one really
Mhm.
worries that like, oh, you didn't follow all the rules because it's like, hey, there weren't really that many rules and the people who set
Yep.
them didn't really know. But then it turns into like, okay, that cowboy came through and broke a bunch of stuff. Let's see if we can fix that. Or they could have broken a bunch of stuff the way they rode through town all willy nilly, lickety
Mhm.
splitty. We should really be more careful and put up some speed limit signs, et cetera, and traffic lights. And so now we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, there's going to be some traffic lights. We're going to manage some traffic through town.
Yeah.
You can't always be a cowboy,
I,
but
we've been running grant programs for 4 years, 5 years. Like I don't know
yeah,
any. Like time flies, but
yep.
how long? I've known you for a long time. It's kind of wild.
Yeah,
Um,
2020. And I think I got the first, I don't know when I got the first grant actually. I think it was the people counter, might have been something else with
okay,
Clarissa.
yeah, and that wasn't even the first wave of stuff, I think.
No, no. That was
Um,
someone that told me
oh,
like you should write a
yeah,
grant. I was like, oh, okay.
which totally reminds me, I saw a people counter on a trail, and I meant to send you a picture.
Yeah,
I've got the picture. I'll send it to you. Anyway, but yeah, we've had some missteps, and some of them painful, some of them less painful. We
that's
used to
right. Like
issue these
Foundation
things
put
like
100 grand in some fucking crazy thing early on, and never like nothing ever got built. And
I just
that was a
don't
what the
even.
fuck moment.
Yeah, I was everyone that works, they know my opinions on the topics.
Yeah. So
uh,
let's just
some of
talk
it,
through it
like,
then. Go ahead.
yeah, well, some of it you couldn't foresee. Like you go and say, like, oh yeah, we'll pay you, $20,000 or whatever for this thing that's going
Yep.
to be paid in HNT, and then HNT price goes down, and now you go from paying somebody 500 HNT to like 2,000 HNT. Well, it's like, wow, that that hits the the
That
pool a little
guts the
bit more.
budget. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, it takes time to build these things, and so you have to sort of map it out in a way that is like predictable and you know isn't going to be a big liability down the road. Some of them didn't have end dates baked in. There was no terminus, like if you don't do it by this time. So it's like
Yep.
now we had to go through and kind of do a bunch of cleanup. So uh, it's like you said, the cowboy side of it. It's like we just want to get people running and like we want to see cool shit happen. But you do have to put that red tape in there. So that's where I do understand it, but I still don't like it.
Yeah. Well, Travis built that helium gin, which I used to help, I think, on the podcast one. I used it for something. And I thought that was pretty cool. That helps you write the grant. I think something like that should be required before you can even submit it. And ideally, what happens is not only does it help you write the grant and then guide you through making sure that it's clear what you're doing, but it also has some checks and it says, like, oh, I don't see that you have any milestones with dollar signs attached to them. You need to fix that. May I suggest,
Mhm.
etc. And basically, like it goes through. You have to go through whatever the gin is or whatever your GPT ends up your LLM ends up being, and that's how you submit the grant. Like the robot is the first filter.
Mhm.
So helium
Yeah,
needs
and you
donuts.
can train a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff in there.
Can you call it huge, like helium under grant environment or something?
Oh, I promise. Helium is probably the least susceptible to this sort of Doge badness. So I'd say things are pretty efficiently run.
Yeah.
We don't spend a lot.
No, and
Yeah.
I feel like I've gotten super fair deals through Helium the whole time. Like all my work with them has been pretty darn fair. Like
Yeah.
they didn't get, with one exception. No. There have been no exceptions that could have been foreseen. Every deal has been fair.
I think we've said no to you plenty of times too. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of
Yeah. Plenty of stuff.
I
I'm
think
like, hey,
it's
this
an
is awesome. You're
important
like,
thing to
no.
remember.
Yeah. No.
Right. Uh, yeah. Sorry.
Yep.
Um, but no, it's like we have to sort of stay focused on a goal, and so we're always trying to evaluate that direction. And doing things through the IoT working group is a different approach, and we're gonna, see different decisions made out of that, which is
Yeah.
good, and
Yeah.
that'll that'll drive a different angle.
Yep. Yep. No, I think
Yeah.
one interesting thing, I was listening to another podcast where they were talking about how data scientists used to be super important. And now the shift may be like to have, for an organization to have a data scientist, right?
Mhm.
For Nova to have Matthew Patrick, or now the working group to have Matthew Patrick, where that dude can look at data and make it dance. It's like pretty impressive. But that is shifting now where it's like, okay, instead of them focusing on making the data dance, and LLM can do that, now they have to use even more of their giant brains to figure out like what to do with the data and what it all means.
Mhm.
Those data. What am I
I
saying
was
wrong
laughing.
here?
Uh, you, you say it however you want.
Yeah. What am I missing? Data.
We got
I'll
we got
fucking
dogs in the office. I'm all distracted now.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I got
yeah.
these asphalt diggers outside.
Um,
Yep. So it's like
I did
interesting
want
thing
to
about
touch
what.
on.
Good.
Oh, well, 619's talking about sensors too. And
Yeah.
uh, I guess part of this is like it highlights this challenge of Helium. You can't really talk about one part with somebody without somebody being like, well, you didn't talk about the other part, or it's like
Sure.
you're not doing anything about sensors because you're doing everything about grants, or you're like, you just can't win. But um, the thing that I raised in the working group, I think a week ago or so, and I think I've talked about this before, but to me, OUIs, net new users of the network, are the most important thing to watch as a pulse for sensor growth. And so what we've seen over the past 6, 8 months or so is a lot of inbound of new operators running their own LoRaWAN network servers.
Yep.
Um, and as a result of that, we've seen a growth in our usage that is not all out of a single LNS, right?
Yep.
So now you have, if you go look at Dune, right? It used to
God, am
be
I
like
getting
three
shoved down
color
the rankings,
bands.
Joey?
Oh, you sure are.
Oh,
But you're
this.
also, I think you're doing all right up there.
I was
Um,
I was top 20 for a while. God, I was somebody once.
yeah, we'll get that fixed. But yeah, you used to see like three color bands, right? It
Yeah.
was Foundation Console 1663 and probably like Paul or somebody, right?
Yeah.
Um, and what you see now is those are there, but you've got this sort of big rainbow of all these other things that have started to expand.
Yep.
And so does the work that I've been trying to drive is as people are interested, as like businesses are trying to do stuff, it's sure, yeah, go work with Medio Scientific or uh, Paul's is called Hey IoT now.
Okay.
There's a bunch of options out there where you can just get something running straight out of the gate. But we've made it easier. Crazily enough, I think that hip that we did of lowering the onboarding cost actually was a really big impact here.
It worked. Yeah.
Um, yeah, the dev adder thing was just, I think it was just a little bit too scary. Um, and so that we've seen a lot of growth out of that. Um, and so that's been really exciting. I'm still at a rate of like, I think 1 to 4 a week of people coming in, signing up new OUIs. Um,
Nice. Shit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, love it. So anyway, keep growing that sensor usage side of things. It is most critical. So don't
Yeah.
think
And
it's
I
forgotten.
think, I mean, my hope is that Business LoRaWAN helps that a ton. The podcast helps out that a
Hmm.
ton. But that only happens when people understand how to use data to either make them or save them more money, or to like to improve their life in some way. But I think the money thing drives way
Well,
more than anything
there's a
else.
couple angles. I think this is really interesting because the somebody's going to start a business because they want money, right? But why do they
It's typically
choose
why businesses start,
helium?
yeah.
Yeah, or
Or to serve
whatever.
something, yeah, sure.
Um, but I think what we've done a really good job of with the IoT network over the past, year and a half or so since the Solana migration is we've done a really good job demonstrating uptime. We've done a really good job demonstrating resilience
Okay.
um, with market fluctuations and everything. A lot of these folks thought that every gateway was going to go away. We're still sitting, hundreds of thousands of these things out there. Um,
300,000 last I checked.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It might be down to 290 now, but that's
It's like
fine. Like,
too high. Yeah. Yeah. And it's still the biggest thing out there, right? Um, and then like legitimacy. So
yep.
being able to be a participant in the Lore Alliance, having conversations there, we're starting to see some of those other board members are like shooting me DMs and be like, hey, let's do something. So like we're having those conversations. Um, so there's a lot that comes with sort of like being at the table
Yep.
and demonstrating your coverage. Like I give a lot of credit to the Helium Geek and the map that got put together that's in World now. And then stuff like our documentation, like people have to be able to get in there and read it and say like, okay, these guys know the tech and it makes sense, and I see
Yep.
how they implemented X, Y, and Z, and they can get going. Um, so it's sort of uh, all of these parts of the funnel that are super critical. The top of the funnel, of course, is like, what am I going to build? Um, but then there's every sort of decision down that funnel and trying to make sure that that maps and lands for folks that are trying to use the biggest public network out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. But,
I like it. I like it.
yeah.
Yeah. It is cool to see it. And I think one of the things I'm interested in is as I start reaching out to other folks in the LoRaWAN ecosystem, is what their view of Helium is going to be.
Mhm.
Whether it's the big dogs, Actility, Senate, etc.,
Well,
or the Things
net more,
Network.
but yeah.
What's that? Or is it?
Senate's net more now, but
Oh,
yeah.
is it Senate? Isn't that more now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what are they thinking of this thing, and is it in line with what I would like them to think it is? Which is like, hey, this is this piece where there are these aspects to it. Like, yes, the gateways are run out of people's homes and buildings. Like, it's not some professional installation every single time.
Mhm.
However, the technology there makes it so that you don't have to have a professional installation that's 10,000 bucks on a cell tower for it to work really well. You can plug the thing into a building. Like I've got at Paleotreats, it's just plugged in a. I mean, it's deep in a closet, deep in the building, and that thing covers every sensor around it for probably a block or two, and it's like on the inside of a building in the worst possible of locations. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they don't need to be that great of a deployment in terms of earning HNT, but what we're aiming for is covering this piece, and then thinking, okay, how does a big business use it? Because it seems very clear to me in the research that once you have a business that is either, I think it's easy numbers to remember. They're not totally accurate, but it's a nice placeholder. Is once your business is over, I think 10,000 square feet or 100 headcount people, if you're not using IoT, you're losing money for sure.
Mm.
So it's like
Yeah,
seeing
makes
that
sense.
piece. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was poking around the coverage map the other day and
Mm-hmm.
just, speaking to this idea of like it's run out of people's houses and all that stuff. I clicked on the Vatican, and one of the things that you can do in this coverage tool now is you can just click on any hex on that coverage map and you can see all of the hotspots that could receive a payload
Yep.
sent from that point. It's 133 hotspots. Uh,
The
so
Pope doesn't mess
y-
around.
you know, yeah, like you could have your, temperature humidity sensors in those special libraries or any of that kind of stuff, right? And those messages will land. So it's yeah, I think that story of the community here is really special and really unique. And that's yeah, why it's really exciting to be able to demonstrate that. Yeah, Pope Mobile tracker. We got to get DIMO in the Pope Mobile. That's what we need.
Yeah. We got to get the Pope going deep in.
Yeah.
That'd be I can see that being a pretty good headline. Like Pope goes deep in. Pope goes deeper.
Yeah. You can ship his meme coin too. Everyone keeps joking that Pope's
Well,
gonna ship a Solana meme coin.
yeah. God knows we need more of those. Max and I are coming out with an article on this thing where people are so upset about the meme coins. And it's like, look, people go to the convenience store and they buy both milk and lottery tickets. And there's no reason to be pissed at the convenience store because they sell both of them. And the people who
Mhm.
go there to buy lottery tickets at some point will be like, oh, I could actually use something with utility like milk or bread or whatever it is that you buy there. Like, it's not a. I think folks spend a lot of time on the internet pretending to be some kind of version of what the public thinks is perfect, but it turns out that all of us like to gamble, all of us like to win and be lucky, all of us like to have a little
Mhm.
risk. Like that's a human element. That's the reason that we are dominating this planet right now. Soon to be changed through our own curiosity with AI. But it's like it's all there. Why be so upset that other than that someone your curiosity burned you because you're a fucking greedy idiot? That's like the only reason that's an issue.
Right. You huck your retirement into
Yeah, that
Libra or
seems a bit
whatever it
silly.
was. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I can see
There
that
was a
the audience here is really happy with this. There's all kinds of coins coming down
yeah.
the pipe.
I love the thing from the Libra um the whole fiasco was that they're like, oh, you're stealing money from all these Argentinians, and the guy was like, no, the only people that bought this were like American and Chinese. Like nobody here bought my meme coin token. So he just like anyway, it's kind of
Yeah,
fun,
I mean, I think
interesting.
the shitcoin branding was just so good because it's like, please, you know what you're getting into. It's on the fucking tin. It's a shitcoin. Like, go have
Yep.
fun with it. It's in the same way that you go to Vegas and go to have fun. But nobody goes to Vegas. No serious person goes to Vegas being like, I am for sure going to come back with all of my rent paid for the next year. Like
Sure.
everybody goes thinking like maybe.
Yeah.
Nobody's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is how I run my life. Well, very few people.
Yeah. It's I think the challenging part is it's all sort of lumped into one bucket. So
Yeah.
you've got
Yep.
legit projects, Hivemapper, Helium, WeatherXM, whatever. And they're like, hey, wait, because it's a little bit crazy out there at the moment.
Yeah. No, it's a wide brush to get painted with. But I mean, look at WeatherXM's year in review, which I think a link is down in the description. They're shipping really rad stuff. They're coming out with more hardware. That was the thing. They're coming out with a new
Mm,
Helium station and a new, I
mm,
think, Wi-Fi station. So they're shipping stuff. They got this hyper local forecast. They've got this super fancy pro forecast. Like they're getting all kinds of huge pieces shipped out there that are working in the real world and are like real pieces of tech that are useful to actual businesses. Like I think that's going to be one of the stories that gets unveiled this year is like, oh, maybe crypto has something real that's useful. And that was like something that's been teased for a while, but you couldn't really point to any crypto project and say like, hey, they're running this giant business right now for the past couple of years. You could always look at Helium and be like, oh yeah, they're whatever. They got a couple sensors out there. They're moving this data through, but it was never like a giant multi-million dollar business built on sensors. But I think that's going to happen this
mhm.
year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm starting to, I think, have a pretty clear goal in my head for what the IoT network should be doing in a year. Uh,
yeah,
and we've seen pretty good signs of that at the tail end of this past year.
yeah. Okay, that's how you Vegas, Jay. Sure.
Yeah.
Card counters, yeah, yeah. And I think card counters also have some issues in Vegas.
Yeah. I don't think they'll let you back.
Yeah, I've heard. Um, yeah, that's rad stuff. Let's see what else is going on in. I don't think I missed anything on the deep inside. I've always got a bunch of projects. Some of them just don't have a ton of new news. Like I looked at Wi-Fi Dab. I didn't see they had anything hugely new. Um, but yeah, if there's anything out there that you guys want to know about, where you're curious about it and interested, IoT for casinos. I mean, so actually, Jay, this is a good point. Is in many cases when it makes sense dollar wise for a business to employ IoT, they do it. Like there's some things. I remember when I was doing the helium stuff early on, I was like, oh my God, let's go to these ski resorts and we'll censor up these ski resorts. Like they won't, like they'll be so impressed with all this IoT stuff. It'll be amazing. And we started talking to them, and it turns out that ski resorts are way ahead of the curve. Like they're super technologically advanced and have
Hmm.
like a super good idea of how to use not only LoRaWAN, but any other connectivity out there. And so the interesting thing here is that this may be that the Helium piece, the Helium IoT network, ends up expanding out that market a little bit more so that maybe you don't need to be at the 10,000 square foot or 100 person head count. Maybe you can now be at the 5,000 square foot and the 50 person head count because it's
Hmm.
so much cheaper and easier to use. And you've got these models of like, this is how it makes a difference in your business. So
I like
it's,
that. Yeah, that's lowering the bar is, I think, one of the most critical things for us to be thinking about too.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think some of the other stuff, the hardware is hard piece comes into play here where the miniaturization of trackers to Jay's point, if each chip has its own LoRa tracker, okay, that's cool. Like, how does that work hardware wise? How do you charge that? Like, basically the entire chip would have to be the battery. But I'm also
Mhm.
seeing this energy harvesting technology come out where it's maybe you don't have to have a giant battery. Maybe like what we see in
Mhm.
the next year or two is that energy harvesting plus enough of a battery, maybe a super cap. We had super cap summer. Maybe we did need to bring super cap summer back.
Let's do it.
And you have
Yeah.
these things where it gets really tiny to store energy
I
and
just
it's already tiny to transmit information. What do you got there?
I just gotta flex my my oh, man, I gotta turn
These are
this
helium chips.
blurry. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah.
What's
If you
what
know,
is
you
this from?
know. The
No, I don't know.
uh nobody knows. There was a community member who went by the name Squirrel Fucker, who created and sold these for HNT years ago.
Nice,
And so I still have the three of them.
nice.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, yeah, that
Oh,
fit.
and
So
they have a tracker on
yeah.
them.
Well, no, I mean this
Oh,
separate,
you just
but
put it. Okay, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, I think that like it's super
Anyway,
exciting to see
yeah.
what's coming down. And we've talked before, going back to the LLMs and AI piece, is that pretty soon I think you'll be able to speak hardware into existence. Where you're like, hey, I want a poker chip tracker that can last for indefinite time with a
Mhm.
energy harvesting thing, or you just describe what you want, and the LLM goes back into its little hardware database and is like, "Oh, cool. Let me just deliver this to you. Go ahead and push this button, and it'll be shipped to you."
Yeah, and there's so much like great reference out there for open source hardware, whether it's just like on GitHub or in the open source hardware, libraries. Like if you need to do a boost converter to make one thing work with another, it's all just Legos at that point. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it goes back to like what happens. Like, what are the implications of AI? What happens when hardware is hard is wrong? What happens when hardware is easy? Um, whatever happened to squirrel fucker? Ah, I don't know, but I'll put that on
I
there.
gotta I gotta imagine they're around. Uh,
Yeah,
Who
he's still
knows?
out there
No,
banging
they've
squirrels.
changed
Maybe he
their
just
name.
got lost in the woods. Yeah, roadkill, maybe. Yeah, so I think there's all
Nope.
these like super
No.
cool things happening.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yep.
One thing I was
And
thinking,
we'll.
Joey, I'm going to do a bunch of bonus episodes on MetSci. I'll just run this by you now and in public. Is I think I was going to do for bonus pieces that are outside of the scope of the grant, but are just fun to do. Is do like onboard a device. I was thinking a device a day because I've got this. I've got boxes, probably like you. I've
Oh.
got boxes full of unonboarded devices that have been sent to me, or I bought, or somehow like landed in my possession. My garage has got, I got four 14 by 14-inch boxes full of fucking sensors plus other stuff. And I thought it might be, and they're all different. I thought it might be fun to be like, oh, what's in here? Reach in the box, like, oh, this is whatever it is. Let's onboard this
Mhm.
thing and build a codec so that it works and works on Helium, and then just put that out there as a video. It's like, oh, if someone goes and looks for the whatever it is, LR7294, they find this thing.
I like that. And you could probably string them all together as sort of a common like smart home narrative or some. I think there's
Yeah,
fun stuff to do there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everyone's if the chat is any indication, we've hit our limit here.
These people love this squirrel thing. Too many squirrels, too
Yeah,
little time. Yeah. I think it's so
yeah,
many squirrels, so little time. But all right, dude, super cool to hang out. I will see you next week, and hopefully next week I come in and say like, cool, they Helium cut a check, and I actually started this podcast. That'd be rad.
yeah. No, we'll get some stuff rolling there. Yeah, the whole team's all over the place right now. Sam's at Consensus in Hong Kong, but
Sam has
some
got the
Nova teams
coolest
out
title,
there,
head of capital at Helium Foundation.
right? Yeah, that's just like your money guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big deal.
Yep.
Cool.
He's kicking ass though. It's good.
Yeah,
So,
he's a crusher.
yep.
He's a crusher.
All
All right,
right.
dude.
Well,
I will see you
we'll
next
catch
week.
you
Thanks,
next
Joe.
week.
Yep. Lates.